What's up, Leafs fans? Welcome to Leafs Digest. Now, one of the most important topics regarding this team right now is going to be what is going on with this blue line. How do we fix it? What guys do we acquire? Who do we move out? How do we move them out? And there has been one name in particular that has been circling around Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, around analysts, insiders, all of that kind of stuff. He is on top of the TSN trade bait board early on into the season so far, and that would be Ben Chiarot of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I did a little deep dive into Ben Chiarot's past, into his stats, in terms of how he plays in the playoffs, in terms of the type of player he is, salary, all that kind of stuff, and I have some takeaways from it, but first thing is first, Goody. Ben Chiarot, is this the type of guy that the Toronto Maple Leafs should be targeting, at least approaching the trade deadline this year, to make a playoff push?
It's not the picture perfect fit, but I actually do think that Ben Chiarot's a player that I would love the Leafs to take some interest in. Whether or not a deal gets done, it sounds like Montreal wants maybe a first round pick for him, and I don't know if the Leafs are willing to part with that. Personally, I am on the bandwagon of do it. We're not building for any other moment than right now. And I know it's drastic to give up a first round pick for a guy who's just a rental. Like you said, stats that are solid but don't jump off at you right away. And the more you look at them, it's like, how great really is he in the offensive end? And the answer is not amazing, but still pretty good. And his numbers have been on an upward trajectory, even to the point of being 30 years old right now. He seems to continually improve. And he got a lot of playoff experience with Montreal last season. What I really like is he was one of the hardest guys for us to play against. He was a nothing easy player, and we really felt him all series. So to have him expose us like that, and then to come join us, almost like the KD mentality, you gotta like that from the standpoint of he exposed what our weaknesses were. So to have him on our side going to war next time, it's a better feeling. This whole team's been playing a bit of a better role, or just smarter hockey in general. And I think that having him on the roster, who's just difficult to play against and will help with the blue line depth, it would be great. But he's also not a righty. So that's, it's not the picture perfect fit, but it is a player I would like to see for honestly, even a first round pick. I would do it.
So as far as Ben Chiarot goes, he's 6'3", 234. He's 30 years old, and as you said, he is a left-handed shot. His salary is $3.5 million AAV. He has a modified no-trade clause, and he is a UFA at the end of this season. So before we go into numbers, stats, all that kind of stuff, just based on like his physical build and his salary, it does concern me a little bit, because going out and getting this, like, you're the one guy really that when you move on from Ben Chiarot that you're likely trying to, or you move for Ben Chiarot, you're trying to get Ben Chiarot and replace this guy, is Justin Holl at this point in time. It's either Justin Holl or Travis Dermott, and regardless of if it's one or the other, when you bring in Ben Chiarot, you may have to drop both of them in order to make this work, if that makes sense. Like, even if one of them goes in a trade, you may have to move on from both of them to allow him to have a spot into this lineup. And the other part of this comes from Sandin and Liljegren have looked great. So are you going to want to move one of those guys out in order to keep a Dermott or a Hall staying in this lineup? Like, I would not personally. So let's say Hall is the guy you move on from here. You're now looking at five lefties. Sorry, you're bringing in another left-handed defenseman, and really, if you replace Hall and you put Muzzin, put him with Muzzin. Now you're going again with two lefties on that line. Who knows how Muzzin adapts to that? Who knows how Chiarot adapts to that? I don't know if Chiarot has played off the offside at any point in his career, so I don't even know if he'd be comfortable with doing that, or if Muzzin would be comfortable flopping sides to accommodate for that. But that is a concern for me right there. Then the other concern, height, weight, like all that, it's great. He's a huge body. He can play physical. He can play mean. He's scary, whatever. But the UFA at the end of the season is a big, big, big red flag for me, because think about how we've gotten burned in the past, like, 4 seasons. It's draft pick, out the door for guys who do not stay on this team. You and I did an entire episode talking about guys leaving and how do we retain them, because, I mean, he's back right now, but look who's left. Kyle Clifford, Riley Nash, Nick Foligno, David Riddick. Like, these are just recent guys that we went out and acquired, and they left right away. And this is where I'm like, a first round pick to a division rival, this guy's just gonna leave again, and we're gonna get burned again. So that's this concerning factor for me.
Definitely a worthy concerning factor, but the way you're going to get players to stay, which we haven't learned to do yet, is by winning. And the way you're
Fair.
going to win is by making yourself better at trade deadline. I mean, on a long list of things to do, but we've already been doing the real essentials here. We've worked ourselves into a top position in the NHL that rewards the chance to contend.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we still have some question marks, but part of this trade deadline is going to be addressing those. And the absolutely glaring question mark right now is Travis Dermott and especially Justin Hall. So once you've addressed that, I think you're in a lot better. You can just pretty much go forward with that team after this. And I get the lack of right-handed defensemen is like beyond evident. I'd say if you can't find the perfect situation and it's going to be a first rounder still to go and get Chiarot, go ahead and do it because I think Sandin's young enough and it's early enough in the season. Who knows when this deal would get done? But even post trade deadline within the first few games, yeah, try playing Sandin up with Muzzin. I think they would actually complement each other so well because Sandin's got that mobile game where he wants the puck, he wants to be offensive,
Yeah.
things that Muzzin doesn't really care to do anymore. And let's be real here, as much as it's in the details, right? But Sandin's kind of like accepted every single challenge he's got, and
Yeah.
this challenge to play on his offside, I feel like it would work out. I feel like it would, and then Liljegren could play still into the lineup, and then you'd have Chiarot there as well. It's like I kind of love the idea of it personally.
Okay, here's where my like real concern comes beyond that point, because it is like a red flag to me about the first round pick for a guy who's a UFA and the ability or the possibility to lose him and stuff. Now, that being said, last year when we made those moves and we went and got Nick Foligno, I supported it because I was on the page of you need to spend and you need to take risks to win, and I get that. My concern more with this situation is the type of player he is, and is it worth taking that risk and making that move? Even if he does stay, is that move worth it for the type of guy he is? And this is where the stats really concern me. And you can't put everything into these numbers, but they are pretty big numbers. And you were right in terms of his offensive production has been on the incline in the past little while, and that's great. But where the real concern comes for me is last season, 41 games played, 1 goal, 6 assists, whatever, that's fine. He's supposed to be a defensive defenseman. Do you know what his plus minus was last year in 41 games played? It was a
Minus 11.
minus 16.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then 29 games played this year, 5 goals, 1 assist, minus 11. So, yes, plus minus doesn't tell the whole story. There's times where you're just hopping over the boards and the puck ends up in your net, or a breakaway happens, or it's just off the face off, whatever. Like, it's not always your fault. But where the concern comes is this is a guy who's supposed to be a defensive defenseman, and you don't have to be crazy in the plus, but minus 16 throughout 41 games played and minus 11 so far this season through 29, those are those are pretty foul numbers for a guy who's supposed to be keeping the puck out of his net 5-on-5.
I hear you. That is definitely a worthy concern here, and it doesn't blow you away for a guy who is defense. You're right. The plus minus should be the telltale sign of his impact on the game, and that's what I'm raving about. I'm saying he's tough to play against, but
Yeah.
if he's constantly at a deficit on his team, then it's like I totally get what you're saying, and I do agree with it to a certain extent. And I'm getting a bit of deja vu right now of last season talking about going and getting Nick Foligno because we said he beat us the year before. He made
Mm-hmm.
us look dumb. Let's go get him to like bolster our chances of toughening up and getting out of the first round.
See,
And then
that's
now
where
we're
my
saying
concern kind of comes with this,
it,
right? Is
it
like,
does seem like
is this
cyclical.
the Nick Foligno recency bias? Like, we just saw this guy, man, he was so hard to play against because we saw him
Yeah.
in a short period of time, and he was really difficult in that short period of time.
And I won't lie, Sherrod was, in my opinion, like a top five most noticeable player out there on the ice for the Canadians all series, like
Yeah.
top three almost. He was just so annoying to deal with, like absolutely everywhere, making defensive plays, which was what was killing us against the Canadians. So I do still see a lot of value in getting him, but a first round pick, it's not optimal to give up. And I agree. The logistics of this, he's not a righty. He's a rental. I get there's a lot going into it here, but I'm not writing off the idea. And if Kyle Dubas can work his magic and get it for a reasonable price, then I'm
Mhm.
all for it. Like, he is a guy that I would like to see come to the Leafs if we can do it reasonably.
Yeah, see, and like I do continue to get a little bit concerned about is like is he one of those guys that when we see in this short sample size, we see him in that 7 game series and we think, damn, he was so hard to play against. Do you like what if Habs fans are just sitting there right now like this guy sucks. Like I hope we get rid of him. Because they could be having that same, maybe not to the same extent as Justin Hall, but they could be having that feeling of like, this guy isn't help us. Like, this guy is an idiot. He takes down penalties. He's putting us in bad situations. He gets lost defensively. And I'm not saying like this is 100% the case, but maybe if you watch him night in, night out, every single shift he's playing, like we do with Jake Muzzin and Justin Hall right now, where we are so heavily scrutinizing them, maybe if we watch him every single game for a season, we would have the same takeaways.
But there would be so much less asked of him right now on this team. And I feel like he would thrive in the role that we give him. And not so long ago, regardless of what he is this moment, I know that during this calendar year, he was able to play like that in the thick of playoffs and go to his Stanley Cup final as one of the
Yeah.
key lockdown guys. So you're right. It's going to matter a little bit how he's doing. But even right now, he's scored 5 times in less than 30 games right now for the Habs as a defenseman.
Yeah.
He only has 1 assist to go with it, which isn't great, but he plays a physical, noticeable style of play. And if he's in your third pairing, like, to me,
Limit
I think
minutes. Yeah.
that's a great situation for you. And like, let's say it ends up being price wise, Travis Dermott and a third round pick. I'll do that. Like, to me, that'll make sense. And
Yeah, but I think that
maybe
would
I'm
be
a little bit,
optimistic. Like if they're demanding a first round pick, like
that's what they think their top value is for him, but he's
yeah.
still there. He hasn't been moved. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams probably looking at what you're looking at and saying, I don't know if we can justify giving up a first rounder for this. And I get why the
Yeah.
Leafs would be thinking twice about it just because of recently how, the free agent rentals have not worked out. But winning will make it work out. And I hope that the Leafs can find some sort of solid situation here at the trade deadline. I really do like the idea of Ben Chiarot. He's someone I've noticed a ton and love his toughness. Just difficult to play against is the way I put it. And he would help us out, but it's not the perfect fit whatsoever.
All right. Well, the last thing I want to do here before we end off on Ben Chiarot, let's play a little belief or disbelief. All right, so Belief, Disbelief featuring everyone's favorite Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman, Marty Marinson. My statement for you is going to be whether belief or disbelief. And this isn't whether you want it to happen or not. This is just, will this happen? Ben Chiarot will be a Toronto Maple Leaf at the end of this season.
Belief. I feel like when we hear rumors, as much as the Leafs stay pretty tight-lipped about a lot of things, when there's a lot of rumble to go and get a guy, Kyle Dubas does the fan base right and goes out and gets him. For the most part, he delivers when there's rumors for a big fish at trade deadline or even in the off season. When he closes in on someone, he usually finds a way to get a deal done. And right now, guys do seem to want to play for Toronto. And I know it's not necessarily about winning, but the team culture is sweet. Like, we got the young guns, also veterans like Johnny T, Muzzin's a beauty. Like, everybody, there seems to be a good atmo about the team despite not getting out of the first round. But everybody knows, including Wayne Gretzky, who's talking about it, this team might be a little bit closer than people think. So I don't know. I would say that Ben Chiarot's going to end up on the Leafs, and that's just a gut feeling a little bit too. But I hope Kyle Dubas can work some more of his magic to make things happen for the Leafs team before the playoffs like he has before.
All right, well, I'm going to go with disbelief on this one. I think that it's just a lot to do with kind of the reasoning that I had where he becomes a concerning. It's not a full panic, like 5 alarm fire bells going off with this one when you look at him and trading for him. in terms of the type of player he is, the age, the salary, all of that, like it does seem to be pretty solid. And he seems to be like a guy, like you said, if he fits into that third D pair, it could be perfect. And his cap hit's not too high. Yes, he's left-handed, but let's say you throw him on that third pair and you've got him playing with Liljegren, and then you move Sandin up with Muzzin, like that could look nice. Where the real reason where I say no and I say disbelief on this one is going to come from is that I think Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan are going to be a little bit weary of trading high up picks for a rental when we've done it, 4 years in a row. We've continued to move on from these guys. A, we don't win. B, they leave at the end of the season. And C, this isn't a guy who's fitting into the top 4. This is a guy who's going to likely fit into as number 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. And he could be a guy that's not going to be heavily relied upon in that sense in terms of minutes and stuff. And then one of the other things here, and just a kind of a final dagger in all of it, is like his Stanley Cup run last year, 22 games played, 1 goal, 1 assist. Like, again, we're not looking for offense from him. 16 penalty minutes and a -6. Like, this is a guy that I think if we're watching night in, night out, I continue to get this feeling, and it's creeping into me that, like, he is a guy that other people who watch him constantly might be weary of and saying, I don't know if that's the guy. Like, he is big, he's physical, he's mean, he's hard to play against. But outside of being mean and hard to play against, he might be just consistently making mistakes that we don't necessarily see consistently.
Yep, that's definitely fair. I think that everything you brought up to critique the acquisition potentially of Ben Chiarot, I think everything you said is warranted and valid. Like, I'm not disagreeing whatsoever. I just think at the right price, he's a player that would help you out a lot in that third defensive pairing. And I'm personally a fan of his game. You're right. Not watching him night in, night out, you'll get treated to that kind of situation if he's here and maybe not end up liking it. I'm sure the Leafs, even myself, I'm going to look into what Habs fans think of him. I'm sure the Leafs already have their own scouting report on Ben Chiarot, dealing with him all the time. But I am curious to hear what Habs fans think, and it'll be interesting to see how many different teams are going to go after Ben Chiarot and really put up that bidding war, because that will determine how I feel about ultimately going after him. I know Edmonton's linked to him, and when I saw that, I actually thought to myself, this is like slightly off topic, but in terms of ceiling and team strengths and weaknesses, I was starting to feel like Edmonton's pretty much looking for everything we're looking for. Are they the most similar team to us in the NHL? And I felt like, yeah, they probably are when I break down their team composition and what they're looking for at trade deadline.
Yeah.
It seemed like probably the comparison. Not that ties really into this video at all, but just thinking about Edmonton, it did feel a lot similar to the situation we're in, with a lot of talent, getting close, and then, we're looking for some defense at the trade deadline, and maybe Ben Chiarot happens. Maybe he doesn't. And one last thing, I've been going on for a second now, but one other thing I want to ask is about the contracts on the Leafs. Obviously, getting draft picks is always good, even if you go ahead and flip them later, develop them, whatever the situation is. But you have some guys long-term under contract that would probably stunt the development of a first-round impact player. That's tough to say. A forward, at least. I know we're looking for defense too. Personally, I just feel like we're set up so we've already determined our cap for like the next 3 to 4 seasons at least. So it's already going to be tight, and we have an AHL system that's really wealthy, and we can pull guys out of really whenever. So I don't know. I don't mind giving up some picks to maybe make a play happen with Ben Chiarot, but a first rounder is steep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's you're right in terms of we do have salary and a salary cap that we're going to be relying on, or we're going to be stuck to at least for the next for the foreseeable future, probably 3 to 5 years of this. I just think that the first round picks are going to come into play at some point here, where it turns into not necessarily them having to become guys who are number 1 players on this team, or they're going to be guys who replace Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, but they could be guys that actually ultimately become important as trade pieces. Like, that's another part of it, right? Where it's like I feel like the value of it could be less just drafting it or just trading a pick. Once you draft a guy, and if you can develop him and turn him into something promising, aka Rhodey and Amirov, Rodion Amirov might have more pull than a late first round pick in terms of just the titles of the two. And that's kind of where having those picks could come into play here and could become important. I do understand what you're saying in terms of, like, it's not like this guy's going to jump in here and be like Lafreniere hopping into the lineup for the Rangers or Hughes with the Devils. And yes, those are first round picks. Those are just the first ones that came to my mind. So apologies for that. But, like, right, that's kind of where it just becomes like, yes, you're right. They're not going to hop in here right away. But they could even just become important as guys who fit in as depth pieces. They fit in as cheap contracts. They fit in like Nick Robertson if he hopefully gets healthy at some point here. Like, we kind of lucked out with Alex Steves being an undrafted guy, but I do think at some point those first round picks will become important. And if you're trading them for guys who just leave right away, it's going to be something that even like 4 years down the road, when those contracts come off the books, we sit here and go, oh my God, I cannot believe we did that, especially if this doesn't pan out and we don't win anything. So it is a little concerning from that side.
A lot of risk.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk in it for sure.
Well, Leafs fans, that about does it for this video. So let us know in the comments below whether or not you think the Toronto Maple Leafs should go after Ben Chiarot. Should we trade for him? Is a first round pick too high, too steep of a price for a player like this? Should we move on from the idea of Ben Chiarot? How do we get rid of Justin Holl? And the final point that I want to know from you guys is, which defenseman should we be targeting here? Let us know in the comments below. If it's not Ben Chiarot, who is it? Where is that guy? What team is he on? And why should the Leafs go and get him? Let us know in the comments after you like this video, and most importantly, after you subscribe to this video. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button on your way out. Leafs fans, let us know what we should do about the defenseman, which guys we should go after. Aside from that, I feel all right about this team for the time being. Hopefully we can move on from Justin Holl, because something needs to happen ASAP. That guy is just booty cheeks at this point in time. It's not working out. But outside of that, Leafs fans, keep believing.
Signing off.